welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. Today we got a more serious topic to discuss, but before we get to that, you know what to do. Go ahead and click on that subscribe, that like, and that notification bell. Make sure you're aware of when new episodes come out, and you'll basically be a member of the Format Podcast team, which is what we want. We want to continue to keep bringing you this good sports talk, and we want you to tune in for it. If you only want the audio version of the podcast, then go ahead, go into your audio platform, your audio podcast platform, search the Format Podcast. We should come up pretty much wherever you listen to your podcast. We're available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, all that good stuff. Wherever you get it, we should be there. Just give it a little search. We should come right up. Also, make sure you leave us a comment, whether you're on YouTube in the comment section or leave us a comment on your podcast platform, and give us that 5-star review. Helps us move up in the algorithm, helps more sports fans find us, and helps us find more sports fans so we can continue doing this, what I like to call God's work. All right, so let's get right to it. Let's talk about it. Serious topic today. So first, the United States is a wonderful place to be. A lot of people see it as the best country in the world. I served this country for years in the military. I'm proud of that service. The United States is a wonderful place. My family is an immigrant family, so I know what it means to so many people who live here. With that said, the United States is far from perfect. There are a lot of places where a lot of people in this country are suffering, and the one state that seems to be affected by that more than any other is the state of Mississippi. The state of Mississippi in 2022 is the poorest state in the United States of America and has a poverty rate of 19.6%, which means just under 1 in 5 people in that state live in poverty. In the year 2021, 21% of children in the state of Mississippi lived below the poverty line. Why am I telling you all this about the state of Mississippi and poverty in said state? Because we have a legend who is allegedly involved in, let's just call it what it is, in a scam to defraud the poorest state in the country of welfare revenue. And that legend is NFL Hall of Fame quarterback Brett Favre. Now, we know Brett Favre is from Mississippi. He attended Southern Mississippi University, and he went on to have a glorious, legendary Hall of Fame career, first with the Atlanta Falcons, then the bulk of it with the Green Bay Packers, short stint with the New York Jets, and then finishing out with the Minnesota Vikings. Again, Hall of Famer, top 5 in just about every major statistical quarterback category. Now, as the rules continue to change and as the offensive play in the game continues to change, he will slide down those rankings, but he will always be, probably a top 10 quarterback all time. He's that guy. He's legendary. But Brett Favre, much like the United States of America, far from perfect. Brett Favre had alcohol issues. He was an alcoholic and relapsed multiple times during his time in the NFL. He was addicted to painkillers while he played in the NFL. I'm not telling you this to denigrate Brett Favre or drag him through the mud. No, I'm telling you this to provide context on Brett Favre as a person. And if the newest and latest accusations about Brett Favre are true, then Brett Favre is not only an all-time great NFL player, Brett Favre is an absolute scumbag. Now notice, let me make it clear. As a journalist, I am saying if the allegations are true. I'm not saying they are. I'm not saying they're not. I'm saying if they are. And, we will find out one day, one way or another, if they are true. But as it stands right now, Brett Favre is accused of working with the Mississippi state government to basically steal millions of dollars from the welfare fund of the state to help to build a new facility for Southern Mississippi University, where his daughter currently attends school, to building for the volleyball program. And he's not the only former athlete or famous person that is alleged to have been involved in this thing, but he is probably the most famous. And again, if it's true, that makes him an absolute scumbag, and that's just as bad as it gets. So we know that Brett Favre, again, legendary NFL quarterback. So what's being accused here? The State Department of Human Services paid $1.1 million in welfare money to a nonprofit known as the Mississippi Community Education Center, which then paid Favre Enterprises twice for speaking engagements. The idea was that the money would go towards a $5 million volleyball facility at Southern Miss, which Favre was building and where Favre's daughter was playing volleyball. So earlier I said that she goes there, so she may not be there anymore. This says where she was playing volleyball. Anyway, Favre didn't make either of those speaking appearances, and he repaid the money. Apparently, there's still $228,000 in interest, which he did not repay. But we're seeing that it's been put out there now that text messages that were made public in court documents showed that in 2019, July 2019, Favre texted with the then Mississippi Governor Phil Bryant to ask if welfare money could be put towards building an indoor practice facility for the football team at the same school being Southern Miss. That never happened, with Bryant texting Favre in September that we have to follow the law. Now, at the end of the day, what are we seeing here? We're seeing Brett Favre being involved with the highest level of official / legislature in the Mississippi state government to get money that he was not entitled to do things that it was not earmarked for, right? Favre is named in a civil lawsuit as the largest individual outside investor of a biotech firm. And it was suggested that they were trying to pump more of that welfare money into said biotech firm. $2.1 million, it's alleged. So obviously the Associated Press has asked Brett Favre for comment. He hasn't. He looks like he just hired a former White House lawyer who was on the Trump team to represent him. But the mere fact that his name would get mixed up in all this is disgraceful. Now, I'm not saying that everything that someone is accused of is the case, but again, if I'm just trying to think about how to put this while maintaining some journalistic integrity here and being objective. But it's really hard for me to even think about this and see, like, if this is really the case and he really did this, like, how do you live with yourself? This behavior, I think, is absolutely reprehensible. And the next question is, how is the FBI not involved here? Because if it is the case that that he did get involved with welfare money, some of that money comes from the feds. So if that money comes from the feds, then the FBI now gets involved. So the question is, number one, how does the FBI not get involved? Two, how has he not been indicted for this yet? At the very least, to be taken to trial to find out if he is guilty of this or not. Clearly, they have text messages between himself and the governor, right? The former governor of the state. So something was going on there. So you got to wonder. And now let's look at this another way. Brett Favre made over $100 million in his playing career. What's the exact number? His career earnings are $141,407,000. Now, we see today guys are getting that on one contract, the elite players, right? And more, right? But obviously the money wasn't what it was back then as it is now. But regardless, he made over $140 million in his playing career. That's more than the vast majority of Americans will ever see in their lifetimes, right? So you got to wonder, number one, he's got plenty of money. Number two, he clearly is, if he's got plenty of money, he's around other people with money. How hard would it have been if he wanted to build these facilities at his alma mater? And there's nothing wrong with that. How hard would it have been for him to say, hey, let's do a celebrity golf tournament. Let's do a black tie fancy dinner gala type thing at, $5,000, $20,000 a plate, whatever it is that they do, right? And let's get some donations here to get the money together to do that. No. Instead, he allegedly decides to put together a scam with the government of the state, the poorest state in America at that, to steal from the poorest people in the poorest state. Like, how do you sleep at night? Like, seriously, that's a statement that we hear a lot, and I don't generally use it. I don't know if you've ever heard me use that on this podcast, and it's not something I throw around lightly, but how do you sleep at night knowing that you defrauded the people who need it so badly? And this is not just people of some random state. This is your state. So even, not that I'm advocating this, but even if you lived in another state where you're not from and you did this, right? Again, not that I'm advocating it, but you could more easily put by it. But this is your state. You know how poor Mississippi is, and you know how much many of the residents there are suffering, and you would do this? Like, I can't believe it. It's just inconceivable to me. So you look at this and you say, again, why is the FBI not involved? Why has he not been indicted yet? What's going on? And if he does, then you ask yourself, well, what will the end, if he is indicted and he's found guilty, what will the end product be? Will he have to go to jail? Will he have to pay back the money? Will there be hefty fines? Like, what's it going to be? Because I'm not the guy that plays the race card. However, let's be real here. There is a racial component. Okay. Michael Vick, he went to prison for dog fighting. And again, I am not advocating dog fighting. Okay. I get it. But he went to prison for what, 1.5 years, 2 years, federal prison for that. Right. You get where I'm going with this? So this is crazy. I mean, I can't imagine if another Hall of Fame African American player, or Hall of Fame African American player in whatever sport was engaging in something like this. I can't imagine that it wouldn't be a much larger story, right? Like, obviously, because of Brett Favre's celebrity and the fact that he is a Hall of Fame NFL quarterback, this is getting some attention, but it's, oddly enough, it's not nearly getting the attention that Ime Udoka is getting with the Celtics. Now, I'm not trying to say one is worse than the other, but at the end of the day, we've got to look at it. Like most things in America, there is a racial component. And let's be real, the things, unfortunately, that white people do or are accused of doing are often handled not in the same way, with the same amount of, they're not handled in the same way that it would be when black people do or are accused of doing things. So what I want to know from you in the comment section, please leave a comment. What do you think about Brett Favre and these accusations? If he is guilty, what do you think should happen? And do you think there's a racial component into how this case is being handled and how it's being reported? All right. So go ahead, leave me those. I'd love to hear from you. And I'm out. Peace.